blood in the grass, a therapy dog barking like the world's ending, and my daughter, 12 years old, paralyzed, lying on her side, whispering, "Dad, my legs." She didn't fall. She was shot. By a woman named Karen. She said my daughter moved too fast in her wheelchair. That our dog was aggressive. She pulled the trigger in broad daylight. On our own lawn. But what she didn't know, what she never asked, was who Mia's father is. I'm a federal prosecutor. And Karen just picked the wrong dad. If you think Karen deserves to be in jail for what she did, leave a prohibited in the comments. If you've ever been targeted, bullied, or silenced by someone hiding behind rules, tell us your story. Share this so no one thinks they can shoot a child and walk away. Because justice isn't just about courtrooms. It's about voices. And this one is mine. I can still hear it, the gunshot, the scream. My daughter's voice, broken and shaking, whispering, "Dad, my legs." But this didn't start there. We came to Willow Bend for peace. For hope. For a new chapter after a long, painful year of surgeries, therapy, and silence. My daughter Mia is 12 years old. She's kind, funny, brilliant. And since the accident, she hasn't walked. But she never stopped trying. We adopted Duke, a golden retriever with floppy ears and a heart so big he practically glows. Mia calls him her little lion. He's not just a therapy dog. He's family. We found a house with a flat yard, a wide driveway, and sidewalks she could glide down in her chair. It felt safe. Suburban. Perfect. That was the word they used in the brochure. Perfect for families. For the first few days it was. Neighbors waved. Kids played ball in the cul-de-sac. The HOA welcome packet arrived, complete with flowerbed suggestions and trash can schedules. We didn't mind. We followed the rules. Then came Karen. I met her while unloading groceries. Clipboard in hand. Sunglasses up like a tiara. Her smile? Tight. Like she was holding it together for the sake of optics. "Welcome to Willow Bend," she said, eyes locked on the ramp we had built for Mia. "Just a reminder, structural changes need HOA approval." I explained gently that it was temporary. ADA compliant. No anchors, no foundation work. Her lips thinned. She nodded, but I saw it. That flicker. That moment of quiet offense. I hadn't asked permission. I'd simply followed the law. That was strike one. What I didn't know then. Karen didn't care about rules. She cared about power. And she'd made herself queen of this suburban kingdom. It started with notes. Reminder, trash bins must be tucked behind the garage, not beside it. Then, please limit lawn decor. Willow Bend strives for visual consistency. The notes weren't about us, at first. But soon they were. Dog too large for a neighborhood with small children. Wheelchair activity causing sidewalk obstruction. Yes, she actually wrote that. Mia started to notice. She'd wave at Karen and get a blank stare in return. One time she came inside crying. Karen told me I ride my chair too fast. She said someone could get hurt. I was furious. But I didn't escalate. I still wanted to believe we could coexist. We followed every rule. Kept our lawn trimmed. Paid dues on time. Added motion lights. But then came the vandalism. First our mailbox, smashed. Then both front tires, slashed clean like with a knife. Police came, took notes, wrote a report. But there were no suspects. When I checked the shared neighborhood camera system, the footage from that night was gone. Conveniently deleted. But Karen's house had a clear view of our driveway. And she wasn't sharing hers. That's when I installed our own cameras. Quietly. And what they caught chilled me. Karen pacing in front of our home at night. Talking into her phone, pointing at our windows. Taking photos of Mia and Duke. Zooming in. One morning we found a letter. Handwritten. No HOA letterhead this time. If you can't keep your daughter's dog from barking and racing down the street, maybe Willow Bend isn't the right place for your kind. Your kind. I didn't cry. I built a case. Screenshots, emails, timestamps. I've worked in federal court for 16 years. I know what evidence looks like. But I wasn't ready for what came next. It happened on a Tuesday. Late afternoon. Mia had just finished her physical therapy session and asked if she could sit outside with Duke while I made dinner. "Just 10 minutes, she said, already grabbing her headphones. I smiled. For the first time in days she looked relaxed. The sun was still warm, the wind soft. A normal day. That was the trap. I watched her from the kitchen window. She sat near the flower bed, legs tucked in her chair, Duke trotting around her in circles. Her laugh floated through the screen door. I let myself believe, maybe Karen had moved on. Maybe we'd survived the worst. Then I heard the yelling. At first it was muffled. I thought maybe kids arguing. But then I heard Duke barking, sharp, frantic. That bark he only used when Mia was scared. I ran to the window. Karen was at the edge of our lawn, arms waving, mouth moving fast. Mia had taken her headphones out. She looked confused, not scared yet. She said something, maybe trying to de-escalate. Then Karen stepped forward. Too close. Duke barked again and positioned himself between them. Karen flinched, reached into her purse, and pulled out a gun. I don't remember screaming. I just remember sound. A crack that split the sky. Then another. Mia collapsed. I dropped the knife I was holding. Ran barefoot across the yard. The grass felt like needles. She was lying on her side. Blood soaking through her jeans. Her hands shaking. Her mouth moving, but I couldn't hear what she said over the ringing in my ears. Then it came. A whisper. Dad, my legs. I can't feel them. Neighbors were frozen. Some on porches. Some holding phones. Some filming. No one moving fast enough. The gun was still in Karen's hand. Charlie, our neighbor from 2 houses down, sprinted over, already on the phone with 911. A woman from across the street brought a towel. I pressed it against Mia's thigh, screaming for help. For someone. For anyone. Karen just stood there. She didn't run. She didn't speak. Just stood with the gun limp at her side like she dropped a grocery bag. When the paramedics arrived, I barely got out of the way. They worked fast. Cut through her pants. Stopped the bleeding. Stabilized. They asked me questions I couldn't answer. Did the bullet exit? What's her blood type? Is she allergic to anything? I think I said her name. Maybe I just screamed. Police came next. 2 officers. Young but alert. They approached Karen slowly. She said something about the dog being aggressive. About the wheelchair moving too fast. She kept calling it an accident. An accident. Like she tripped on a rug. Like she spilled coffee. They took the gun. Put her in cuffs. And that's when I saw it. Not fear. Not guilt. Annoyance. As if this whole thing was just inconvenient. The ambulance doors closed. And just like that, my daughter was gone. Somewhere between here and the hospital. Bleeding. Alone. The next hours are a blur. Fluorescent lights. Nurses shouting codes I didn't understand. My shirt still soaked in her blood. Charlie stayed with Duke outside. Hospital rules. I wanted to be angry. At rules. At God. At everything. But all I could feel was empty. A detective arrived to take my statement. I gave him everything. Every email. Every threat. The slashed tires. The deleted footage. My notes. He nodded quietly. Took it all down. Then said, "You're not the first." I froze. You mean she's done this before? He looked tired. Not this. But harassment. Reports. Complaints. She was always careful. But this time. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Because this time, a neighbor caught it on their doorbell camera. Every second. Karen yelling. Mia pleading. Duke protecting. The gun. The shots. Everything. They showed her the footage at the station. I wasn't there, but I heard how her expression changed. How she went from smug to silent. How her shoulders dropped. And then, the line that cracked the ice. You know who her father is, right? Karen blinked. He's a federal prosecutor. Silence. No HOA committee could save her now. No fake apology. No rebranding. She shot a disabled child in broad daylight. On camera. And thought she'd get away with it. But not this time. Not with me watching. The hospital was cold. Not in temperature but in feeling. That sterile, too bright quiet where every breath feels like it doesn't belong. Mia was in surgery. They wouldn't let me in. I sat there, covered in her blood, holding the towel I'd pressed into her leg, not because it was useful anymore, but because it was the last thing between her and death. Charlie had taken Duke back to our house. I barely noticed him leave. I don't remember sitting. I just remember being there. Frozen. Waiting for someone to tell me if my daughter still had a future. Eventually, a nurse approached. Asked if I wanted some water. I shook my head. Then came a man in plain clothes. Detective Marin. He looked like the kind of guy who's seen the worst in people and doesn't blink anymore. He introduced himself, said he needed to take my statement. I stood up. I wasn't about to let this be some open-ended investigation. I was ready to make it count. We sat in a small room with a box of tissues dead center like it was some kind of ritual. I didn't cry. I told him everything. From the ramp complaints to the mailbox. From the deleted footage to the handwritten note. From Karen's eyes that day to the blood on Mia's jeans. He wrote it all down. nodded occasionally. Then he looked up and said it again. You're not the first. I stared at him. Complaints? Harassment? Intimidation? She's been doing this for years. People were scared. She made life miserable for anyone who didn't play by her rules. But this time, she went too far. Then he pulled out a tablet. One of your neighbors caught it all. Their doorbell cam. Want to see it? I didn't want to, but I had to. The footage was raw, shaky, but the audio was clear. Karen yelling. Mia trying to calm her down. Duke barking. And then the gun. The screen shook from the blast. Mia's scream sliced through the room. I stopped the video. I couldn't breathe. She's being held, Marin said. We showed her the footage. She tried to deny it at first. Said it was self-defense. But when we asked her about your job, I looked at him. He continued, we told her you're a federal prosecutor. And? Her face changed. Like someone told her the roof was about to collapse. She knew she wasn't walking away from this. Later that day, Karen sat in a gray-walled interview room. She looked bored. Like she was being inconvenienced by the whole process. The footage played again. She watched herself scream, pull the gun, fire. No one interrupted. No one softened the truth. And when it ended, the detective said, you just shot the daughter of a federal prosecutor. On camera. She didn't speak. He added, she's 12. Paralyzed. And she was sitting in her own front yard. Karen finally blinked. But she didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just stared. Like she couldn't believe she'd finally lost. That night, they denied her bail. I wasn't in the room. But I heard she looked shocked. Like the world had flipped upside down. Outside, reporters had already picked up the story. HOA leader shoots disabled girl over dog dispute. Karen arrested. Victim's father is federal prosecutor. The world was watching now. And I wasn't done. Because justice isn't just punishment. It's exposure. It's showing the world exactly what monsters look like when they smile and call themselves leaders. It didn't take long. By the next morning, the footage had leaked. No one knew exactly how. A cop, a clerk, someone close to the case. It didn't matter. What mattered was that the internet saw it. And it exploded. First local. Then national. Then global. HOA woman shoots child in wheelchair over dog argument. Karen versus prosecutor dad, suburbia's darkest hour. Clips ran on every news channel. The video trended on Twitter, then TikTok, then YouTube. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone had rage. And there she was, Karen, frozen in every thumbnail. Gun raised. Ice cold. And Mia's scream. That sound became a rallying cry. Strangers made art. Edits. Tribute videos. Hashtags. People started tagging their own HOA nightmares. Some said it was about ableism. Some said it was about race. Others said it was just plain evil. All of them were right. But what no one could ignore was Mia. She survived. The doctors said the bullet missed her spine by centimeters. She lost a lot of blood. The damage to her leg was real. But she was alive. She'd need time. Therapy. Maybe another surgery. But she would live. I sat beside her bed, holding her hand like I could physically anchor her to this world. She didn't say much. Just looked out the window with those deep, sharp eyes. She knew the world had changed. She just hadn't decided if it was for the better. The nurses brought her cards. Hundreds. Then thousands. From kids in chairs. From veterans. From strangers. Some just said, I'm sorry. Others, you're stronger than me. One said, you make me want to fight back. That one? She taped it to the wall. Meanwhile, Karen was crumbling. Her attorney tried everything. Stress, mental health, stand your ground. None of it worked. The footage was too clear. Her history too ugly. The pattern too long. And then came the neighbors. Testimony after testimony. People who had been bullied, fined, humiliated. One man said Karen forced his daughter to remove a pink tricycle from their porch because it clashed with HOA color guidelines. Another said she'd threatened eviction over wind chimes. It all came out. The news stopped calling her a woman involved in a shooting. They started calling her what she was. A predator in pearls. The HOA board resigned. 3 of them had known. They stayed silent. Local politicians denounced her. Disability rights activists demanded national reform. And in the middle of all of it was my daughter. One girl. In one chair. On one lawn. She didn't scream for justice. She didn't march. She healed. Quietly. Deliberately. And the world watched her. Because for the first time they couldn't look away. It took 6 months to get to trial. Karen's legal team delayed it again and again. Medical excuses, mental evaluations, motions to suppress evidence. They tried to bury the video. They tried to make the court forget what everyone else had already seen. But the court wasn't blind. The world had already judged her. And now it was the law's turn. Mia didn't attend. She was still healing, in body and in mind. But she watched with me every evening. We streamed it together in the living room, Duke curled up at her feet. I wanted her to see it through. Not just for closure, but because she earned that right. Day one of the trial felt like a movie. Cameras outside. Protesters holding signs. Justice for Mia. HOAs aren't above the law. Inside, Karen walked in wearing gray. Her face was blank, like she was still convinced this was all going to blow over. But it didn't. The prosecution didn't waste time. The first thing they did was play the video. Again. Mia in her chair. Duke barking. Karen screaming. The gun. You could hear the entire courtroom stop breathing. Then came the emails. The threats. The letters. HOA policy she weaponized. A trail of cruelty dressed as compliance. The defense tried to spin it. Said Karen was under stress. That she acted out of fear. That the dog charged her. That Mia's wheelchair startled her. But the jury didn't buy it. You could see it in their eyes. They didn't see a woman defending herself. They saw what we all saw. A predator with a pistol. I took the stand. I swore in. Looked right at the jury. And I told them everything. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just spoke. And when they asked what Mia said to me after the shooting, I answered. She said, "Dad, I can't feel my legs." The courtroom went still. The defense didn't cross-examine me. They didn't dare. Karen never testified. Her lawyers said she was too emotional. The truth? They had nothing left to spin. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty. On every count. Aggravated assault. Attempted murder. Hate crime enhancement. Karen didn't move. She just stared forward like her mind was still looking for a way out. But there wasn't one. Sentencing was 2 weeks later. Mia wrote a letter. She asked me to read it aloud. I stood in front of that courtroom and held her words in my hands. "I used to think grown-ups always protected kids," she wrote. "That neighbors were supposed to care. But I learned that some people use power to hurt. And some people stay silent. I forgive Karen. But I never want another kid to feel like I did, like they don't belong. Like they're in the way." I looked up. Even the judge was blinking back tears. Karen was sentenced to 20 years in prison. 15 for the assault. 5 for the civil rights violation. No one clapped. No one cheered. Just silence. Because justice had been delivered. And everyone in that room knew. Karen wasn't a mistake. She was a system. And that system just fell. The headlines didn't stop. Karen sentenced to 20 years after shooting girl in wheelchair. Federal prosecutor's daughter survives HOA nightmare. The footage lived online. Clip. Reposted. Broken down frame by frame. Reaction videos. News panels. TikTok stitches. But while the world watched her fall, Mia was rising. We returned home to a street that felt different. Neighbors who once glanced away now nodded with respect. Mailboxes were no longer marked with silent warnings. The HOA board had resigned in disgrace. And Mia? She rolled down the same sidewalk Karen once tried to control. Duke at her side. Head high. People waved. One little boy yelled, "You're the reason I'm not scared anymore." She smiled. But didn't stop. Because she had work to do. She started a blog. Still rolling. At first it was for herself. Then it became something bigger. She told her story. Every chapter. Every scar. Kids from all over the country wrote in. Parents. Teachers. Veterans. Strangers. They called her brave. She said she was just honest. Within a month, she'd launched a petition. Federal reform for HOA discrimination against disabled residents. They called it Mia's Law. Over 1 million signatures. Then a call from a senator. She went to D.C. Spoke on the floor. Didn't flinch once. I watched it from home holding back tears. Because she wasn't just my daughter anymore. She belonged to the world now. Karen? She tried to appeal. Lost. Tried again. Lost harder. She's now in a correctional facility 3 hours north. No pearls. No clipboard. No HOA titles. Just another number in a jumpsuit. She became a warning. But Mia? She became a movement. A reminder that surviving isn't the end. It's the beginning. I still sit outside some nights. Same chair. Same porch. Sometimes Mia joins me. We don't always talk. One night she asked, "Dad, do you think she really believed what she was doing was right?" I said, "No. But she believed no one would stop her. And that's the difference. Because we did. Because Mia did. If you made it this far, don't scroll away. Drop a stop sign if you believe Karen got what she deserved. Leave a speech balloon if you've seen abuse of power in your neighborhood. And if Mia inspired you, share this story. She didn't fight to go viral. She fought so kids like her don't have to feel invisible. So let's make sure no one like Karen gets to hide again. Justice only works when people speak up.